Uh, so let me formally introduce both of you then. And I hope people are coming back on. We had 20 some, and if we didn't, then I don't know. I hope they'd come back on. So here we go. All right, everybody. Now, two of my favorite people on the planet, John and Sandy Craig, and they have been a part of the Lamb Network, Back to Lamb Radio from years and years and years and years ago. And they've been a major part of the progression of a Lamb Radio into the Lamb Network, the whole thing. And I've been informed that even though I have them in increments of 15 minutes individually, they're going to mesh there too. And we know they do that so well. So let me formally introduce here John and Sandy Craig. It's all yours.
Well, I tell you what. All I can say is this: when it comes to subjects like we're going to talk about today, is borrowing from a theme and a program of the Lamb Network. Thank goodness we're only visiting this planet.
There you go. Exactly.
This thing is so extraordinary, like blowing my mind of why and how such a bill. Actually, it's this HB5, the Equality Act is what they call it. It's actually passed the House already, and it's been thrown up to the Senate. So this is really, really important that we're talking about it now, so that people can be aware and contact senators. And contact President Trump. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit.
Veto it.
Yeah. In fact, I'll just jump to it. President Trump, apparently the word is that he's going to veto it if it does ever pass.
And we want to support him on that and make our voice known to him.
We have, but this stuff that's going on is very important. It's one of the things and one of the themes that I've been talking about lately, and it's just really close to my heart. And you've probably pick it up on Let Us Reason Together on Mondays, selfish plug or unsolicited plug or whatever you want to call it. But is how we as believers have had this bunker mentality. We just think the greater exodus is on its way. And so, we're just going to endure it because we know the times and the seasons are going to get worse and worse. But wait a minute. Just wait a minute. Let's pause and think. What if our grandchildren still are around? What if things take place and the timing is off, as much as we like for the timing of the return of Messiah to come? What if our timing is off and we've got to live with these rules and laws, and then would have had an opportunity to affect these?
And we just sat around and did nothing.
And that's why it's very important. Believers over the years that I've been involved with have been very, very good about praying about issues, but we as believers have not been very good about action. And there's actually just a small portion of people, a percentage of people that actually write their senators, call the congressman, send a note to the White House, and actually let their voice be heard. We just say, well, let's pray and let God change it. No. How many times does God give us a voice and gives us feet and hands to do things? And that's what I want to do, and that's hopefully what we're doing here today, is to motivate people with what's going on with this bill. So if you don't know what's going on with this bill, HB5 is all about what they're calling the Equal Opportunity. Isn't it what the Equal Opportunity Act?
It's a farce.
I'm sorry. It's the Equality Act. That's what they called it. They took that name and they put it on this bill to make it sound like this is great, but they're hijacking the agenda from 1964, 1965, where the Civil Rights Act, where they actually dealt with real issues, making sure that every race had equal opportunity. And now they're taking this and saying, we've got to apply this to perverted, I'm just going to say it, it's to perverted lifestyles, and it's basically expanding the rights of where gays, LGBTQ, XYZ, whatever you want to call them, to have more rights than the rest of the public. It actually giving them
That's
rights,
exactly
this
right.
small percentage of people, that's maybe 1, 2, 3% of the entire population of the United States, and giving them the rights that exceed and trump over anybody else's rights.
Well, it removes everybody else's rights. You don't no longer have the right to live the way that you choose. You now have to abide by the rules, but they don't. They have free reign, like wild animals, to roam and go wherever they want and be a bully and have their way.
Yeah, and in fact, any opposition to it it's reversed. Now we're the racists. Now we're the bullies. Now we're the ones that are not getting. Now we're being charged, could be charged with the hate crimes, because we are the ones that are actually standing up against this type of programming. And this is really, in effect, an authoritarian rule that just it completely contradicts anything that we as Americans were raised to believe of who we are. That is, people that are a free people that are not subjected to some type of authoritarian regime, which is tyranny. And we're supposed to rise up against tyranny according to the Declaration of Independence. And that 1964 Civil Rights Act was, and here's a quote that I have from one article, is it was to create a brave new world of, or what this bill does, as opposed to the Civil Rights Act, is it's a brave new world of discrimination based on undefined terms of sexual orientation and gender identity. And the legislation threatens women's sports, shelters, and schools, and could silence female athletes, domestic abuse survivors, and other women. That's just one part of it.
I have a friend that I went to school with. She's a coach, and she's already seen that what's happened from this. And you read current news that basically female athletes are being completely shut out now because males are entering as females. And I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to beat the men. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so it's really removing the people that say, oh, we're for women's rights. If you're for women's rights, ladies, whether you're a believer or not, then you should get off your butt and you should go over there and do something about this bill, because guess what? Your rights are gone now as a woman. You now, because you have the men that are women. So if you think that you're going to compete as that, it's no longer an equal playing ground. And, or not that it has been, but you're worse off than you ever were. So if you call yourself a woman's liberator and you're not a believer, even if you're not a believer, you should get on the phone and you should do something, because your fate is far worse than it was yesterday.
Yeah. There's a former tennis star, Martina Navratilova. If y'all remember her, going back to the 70s, I believe, she actually co-wrote an opinion piece in the Washington Post urging lawmakers, here's what she said, not to make the unnecessary and ironic mistake of sacrificing the enormously valuable social good that is female sports in their effort to secure the rights of transgender women and girls. Now, I don't call transgender people by a gender other than what the cellular DNA and body parts are. I mean, that's just the way it is. You come out of the womb, even in the womb, you got the DNA for a male, you're a male. It doesn't matter what's all this.
If you have the genitalia, you're a male or a female.
That's right.
That's what it is. We don't have to.
And the thing.
Let's go right there.
Yeah. But the problem is that if we have these type of opinions and we're actually looking out for the overall better social good, what's it actually doing? It's actually, we're actually thrown into a category of people that need to be locked up according to the way these rules are, because anybody that opposes this or actually does not show an equal opportunity for these type of people. And I'm saying, look, we already got laws in effect. There's laws in effect that actually protect people's rights, because people are people. But because of orientation, now certain people,
to do with that.
Certain people have greater opportunity than other people. People are people, and people's rights should be protected wherever they are. That's what I believe. And now now what they've done is, with this law, there is a provision by which, if someone is considered guilty of however they want to label it, because it's pretty obscure about how the rules are and how it's going to work. But if they say, oh, wait a minute, you just discriminated against me, now it can be thrown over to the DOJ, to the Justice Department, and they can actually take that and use it to prosecute people that are just simply living the way we've lived for the last how many hundred, decades, as in terms of understanding what is man, what's woman. People have rights. Just because you're a certain sexual orientation, that doesn't mean you have more rights over anybody else. Now they've been elevated to a class above everybody else. I think it's just all kind of part of a programming in order for this continuous breakdown of society. I heard something about this and the way societies cycle through, and how there's a certain point where cycles in societies and cultures reach a certain point, and at that point
They implode.
Well,
It's just you see that through all societies, Greek, Rome. We can go through every one of them, and that's what happens. And we're on the road to destruction.
And what we're seeing here with this type of legislation, it actually goes to the other point of it, to enact rules within this law which contradict all of these pro-life bills that have been passing, where
Underhandedly
it would undermine them, by which lives of the unborn, and actually the lives of those that have been born,
up to 3 now.
Up to 3 years old, would actually be subject to death.
Because up to 3 years old right now, they're considering that they could possibly do an abortion.
Yeah. And one of the last phases in these cycles of the culture is when the culture begins to eat their young, then the culture, that's the point where the culture has reached the point of complete collapse.
Isn't that even what the bill itself does? Because maybe it's not physically destroying them, murdering them, but it's murdering their mind. It's murdering the atmosphere which they're raised in, which is brainwashing them into believing this is the norm, so that they literally, it is taking over and destroying their future. It is destroying their own mental understanding. Because if there's anything I know, is that in the last 10 years, especially, that kids in high school, if you're going to a public school system, you can be the most on fire kid for Yah, but after a year or two in school, in high school, you transform and change into the most liberal socialist kid that's against anything about God or believers. And it's just one more step to steal our children's lives away when they're that much younger, because they're not going to be safe in a restroom. They're not safe. If you look at what's happening right now, you read about people being raped and everything else because of all the things that have already been passed and made normal. So hello, wake up. In fact, I would encourage people, Target and other places like that are jumping on the bandwagon of this stuff. Stop going there.
Yeah.
Stop visiting them. Stop frequenting them. Look up the list. See who these liberal people are. Maybe we need to pay a little bit more for a brother who's down the road, who's trying to do a mom and pop business, and support them and what they're doing, because they're standing up for truth. You know what? The dollar speaks. Run these people out of business. The dollar speaks.
Well, and I'll tell you this, it's a sad thing that what this bill will do is it will actually require me as a husband and as a father and as a grandfather to actually, when we're in a public place, and if Sandy has to use the public restroom, or if my granddaughter needs to go to the public restroom, is that we're going to have to go in and check the restroom to make sure that there's no creeps in there. I'm going to use the word creeps. It's just the way it is. Just be honest. And because there's actually creeps that will take advantage of this in order to get into a woman's bathroom. Because today they identify themselves as female.
Tomorrow they may identify themselves as a cat. Who knows?
Who knows? Exactly. And so have to make sure the bathroom's safe. There's no one lingering in there. There's no weirdos in there. And then stand at the door and say, wait a minute, you're not going into there until my granddaughter comes out of there.
And then you could be arrested.
And then I
for
could
it.
be arrested for doing that. But if I go in, especially one of these cities, we live in Amarillo. Typically, it's a little bit safer here. I won't say we're completely safe because not every city is safe. You could live in small town America and it's not going to be safe. Not anymore. Not with this type of law being, if it actually goes in, gets passed. But we go down to visit in Houston. My goodness, that is a serious issue. I mean, think about this. We take our granddaughter to the water park. We're going to have to make sure that
pee your pants.
Yeah, just make sure that pee in the pool. What? That's gross. But I mean, seriously, I'm thinking about the safety of my family, and there's no provision for safety. And we know that the higher incidence of activity against children and women happen when we have these bathrooms that are not fully established in gender. And I mean, after all, they'll actually just end up removing the gender sign.
Or, well,
that's what they'll end up doing.
Or it could run people out of business because they have to create another bathroom, and the expense of that could destroy small business.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then that takes us to other thing is that we have a congregation where we have a building that we meet in, and we have a men's and women's restroom. Well, according to this, we would be required, if someone came in off the street, because it is a public access building, if someone came in off the street, they could go in and use their however they identify that day with the bathroom of their choice. Well, that's not going to happen. But we would be subject, and it would shut down our congregation because we would be subject to the laws and the penalties that are placed within this bill. And that's every congregation, every church, every synagogue, every private business. Now, a lot of businesses that are small, a lot of times they just have one restroom and it's one person at a time in that restroom. But if it's a multi-unit restroom, you're going to be subject to the scrutiny of this law. And guess what? They're looking for opportunities. If they're going to go after a baker who says, I'm not going to bake a cake for your homosexual wedding, then they're going to, where's the next target? They targeted that baker
on purpose.
Not only just once, but even after he won the case, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars defending it to the Supreme Court, they came back around and did it again to him. So they will continue to find a target in order to make it a public headline.
But isn't that the point? Don't they want to run down those that are believers? Don't they want to destroy their livelihood, their lives, their businesses, so they can make their voice can be louder heard? Don't they want to make them evil in the eyes of the world as they lie in the media, as they distort the truth? That's the whole goal, is to silence those who believe, because it is a kingdom against kingdom war. But as folks, guess what? We win.
That's a really good point, Sandi, that you bring out. And we talk about these issues and they're all like, this is like in your face. This is our culture that we're living in right now. And you brought up this really, really, really good point. This is the intensification of a spiritual warfare. And why is it here? Is because of neglect from believers. Because if we had been involved in the battle all along, all the way, if you can go all the way back to 1963, when they took prayer out of schools, if the church had not become, I'm going to use the word church, if the body of Messiah,
congregation,
whatever you want to use it, if you take it all the way back to there, if they had not been asleep, apathetic, and complacent, I don't think we'd be here today. But every decade seems to have come to another step that has brought us to this. Marlon Maddox back in the 1980s called it the slippery slope, and he was addressing these social issues way back then. And he was a great voice, and probably one of the lone voices to the biblical perspective of how we're to live. I think James Dobson was one, them, and then also the Focus on the Family. Well, not Focus on the Family. The other one out of Mississippi.
I know which one.
With Don
Wildman.
Wildman.
Yeah.
Yes.
the radio station there.
Right. Those were the three main voices that were out there to actually address these issues. And guess what? They did what they could do, but here we are today. We're here today because essentially we have another generation. We've got busy. We're so, we got 2-parent households, both parents working. You got
just trying
to make ends meet and go on, and we don't have time to listen to the news, and and it hasn't really been until the advent of YouTube and these other social platforms, which now we're being silenced on, where we've actually had a platform to say, okay, those people were not magnifying these type of messages enough, and here we're able to do it and get multiple people from multiple platforms to be able to speak and get these issues out there and talk about them. So, well, there's something else that was very interesting that, and this is where parents, on this one article, it talked about parents are called bigots for trying to truly help their kids. And the question is this: transgender activities insist the only acceptable way to treat gender dysphoria is with puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgery. But is it really a good practice to turn children into lifelong medical patients? And so it says we're talking about powerful drugs that have negative side effects and surgeries that amputate healthy body parts. And in most cases, they're not necessary. Studies show that 80 to 95% of children come to accept their biological sex as their hormones change during puberty.
That's why they want to get them young. They want to convince your 2-year-old that they're a boy when they're a girl, or a girl when they're a boy. So that brainwashing is set in place so that there is no normalization. I remember there was a time when I was younger, I wanted to be a tomboy. I wanted to go out and get in mud and shoot guns and just do that. Did I want to become a boy? No. But then time changed and I was a little bit more girly, and, but what they want to do is take our kids as young as they can get. So how does that tie in? Because this all has to do, bottom line, guys, all of this has to do with sex. Sex is everywhere we look. It's all about sex. And
one side they're trying to magnify it. On the other side, they want to incarcerate. I mean, they're just like, they
want it in everybody's faces. They want kids. I was listening to someone, and they said now the average age of when kids start having sex is 12 years old. And it's just normal. That's normal. Kids are engaging like that. Why? Because this has already started. This sexualization, even so young as kindergarten and preschool, started long ago already. This is old news, but now they want to transform. They open the door to sex. So now they want to make it the stuff that's way out there, and make that, take our kids. Let's take the children, because as the children go, so that's where our future is.
Yeah. So put it in another perspective, because this is contrary to that transgender doctrine, which questioning an adolescent's beliefs is not abuse. And that's what they're trying to say, is they're trying to say that it's abusive to question your child or your pre-adolescent child about wanting to be a different gender than what they were born with. In fact, I think they're doing it on birth certificates now, where they're not putting the gender on there
because the child gets to decide for themselves.
The child decides for themselves. Yeah. So
birth your babies at home, people.
So, but understanding it's not abuse to question that child's beliefs. It's not. This is what caring.
You should be forming the child's beliefs.
Caring. This is what caring's about. And so I mean, there's a reason why adolescents are not allowed to buy cigarettes or alcohol, and engage in other activities until they reach the age of majority. Why is that? It's because they don't have the capacity.
Because you're the one that's supposed to be training up the child in the way they should go.
They have no realistic ability to project future consequences in regards to their actions. That's why we are parents. We direct our children. We can understand those things, and they may kick and scream, and they may want to go down that road. But this is what we do as parents, and we are supposed to, and grandparents, and because the adolescent's frontal cortex, that's that part right here in the front of the brain. That's where long-term judgments are made, and it's not fully developed
till 25 to 27 years old.
Yeah, for males. So
we're talking. Yeah, I mean, we all know young people out there that they really are clueless about the consequences of their action in their 20s. Because why? That's not even fully formed. So you're wanting to, yeah.
So teens need their parents to communicate these facts. This is science, right? These are the facts of science, and we got to guide them to wise choices, right? As Joe put in here in the notes, train up a child in the way he should go. Isn't there's truth in that? Why? Because there's life in that. That's the whole issue of why we follow the instructions of Yah, the Torah of Yahweh. It's life. In his life, any other path is death, and there's destruction in that. But on the other side of this is what's going on in schools. Some schools are forbidding teachers to tell parents which gender identity their children are claiming in the classroom. And so parents have said, behind our backs, the faculty and staff referred
undermining.
Yeah, to her by her new name, and the gender guidance counselors were advising our daughter about halfway houses because her parents did not agree she was a boy.
Okay, well, and kids tell stories. Okay, so you have a kid in the public school and or wherever. And kids like to play roles. You like to play princess. I thought that I have this birthmark, and I thought for sure I was truly a princess from somewhere when I was a little kid. So somebody say you want to change your name to Princess whatever as a little tiny kid, I'd say, yeah, that's what I want to be. Because why? Because we're learning to use our imagination. The kids are learning to they're learning how to make believe. That fact, we want to encourage that, but they don't know where the line draws. So as far as they know, oh, do you want this name today? Is that who you go? Yeah, that's what I'll do. I mean, how many times did the family, one of you got to play the baby, or you're the girl and you got to play the dad because there were 3 girls? I mean, hello, does that mean you want to switch? No, but that's where their thinking is. So anyway, it's just really messed up. And that's why we need to be praying. But we couple it with contacting President Trump and our senators. And we remember that we are in a war, and you can't let up, guys, because we're called an army of one, as one. And we know that Yahweh is greater than the enemy, and we don't remain silent.
And this is one thing that I know is that if you go to whitehouse.gov and go to the place where you can leave a comment, you can send it to there. Sometimes President Trump actually reads those comments, and they do put those things together and say, President Trump, look how many people are talking about this issue. Because why? This is probably one of the most engaged presidents that we have ever had that is actually listening to the voice of the people.
Whitehouse.gov.
And I recommend contact the president, say, we don't want this Equality Act, which is House Resolution 5 that the House has passed probably unanimously with the Democrats, and a whole bunch of Republicans joined them too, by the way.
Right. Unfortunately. And we still need to contact. Anyway,
it's easy. Just get online. You can contact your senators and representatives that way as well. It's easy to do that. So, but hey, there's a lot more to talk about, but these are just a few things that it stirs me up.
Are you a little passionate, John?
I'm just a little passionate.
But we want to thank you guys for giving us time to just give a voice to all of this. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Well, we really appreciate it, and we thank the two of you for working together on this. Now, one thing I do want we get a couple of minutes here, real quick, that it was John's news report on the HR5 bill that sparked me for all of this. So go to the Four Quarters News and check out the news, because there's a lot of really good stuff there. And John, I really, really appreciate your candor on this, on everything else you put together. I want to remind everybody that there is now an HR5 link on the Lamb Radio website. And by the way, you were talking about calling. I'm looking for the number right now. You can call the United States Capitol 202-224-3221. I'm sorry, 3121. A switchboard operator will connect you directly with the Senate office you request. So there you go.
Do it.
224-3221 or 3121. I keep wanting to say that. John and Sandy Craig, you guys are the best. I appreciate you. And we plug on is what we do. So thanks a million to both of you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.